Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Harvey, and I am the director of the MBA program here at the University of St. Mary. And I want to lead you through a virtual info session so you can learn a little bit more about the MBA program and what all it involves. If you look at this slide, it demonstrates the structure of the MBA program. So if you look at the top box, you're looking at 8 core courses. These are all the courses that are required for students, no matter what concentration you choose. And then if you look in the box below, you'll see what our different concentration courses are. Each one of those concentrations requires 3 courses each. So there's a total of 11 courses altogether, or 33 hours in order to earn the MBA. You can take courses in person, online, or a combination of both. It's the same program, basically, between the requirements and the curriculum, whichever way you go. There are similar types of assignments in both programs. They are generally geared toward practical application. So you're not going to find a lot of exams and quizzes. There's a little bit maybe like in accounting, but overall there really isn't all that much of that. What you're looking at really is more project-based learning, thinking about what kinds of deliverables would you be doing in the workplace and how can we emulate that. There may be other things where you're doing discussions, you're talking about case studies, you're learning from real cases. And so we really want it to be fairly hands-on, fairly practical, definitely applicable to the real business environment. Our classes tend to be relatively small. On the smaller side, when I'm talking about a typical small class, you're maybe talking about 8 students or something. On our larger classes, we may have as many as 20. It's rare that it gets much higher than that. And so we do try to keep our classes relatively small so you can have a more intimate discussion with your students and with your professor as well. Under most circumstances, you can take either or both flexibly. That is, you can do online, you can do in person, or you can do a combination of both. Now, if you're an international student, there are more restrictions in terms of what you are able to do. And obviously, if you're at distance, if you are far away from the Kansas City area, then it limits your ability to be able to show up here in class. But if you are a local, then you do have that flexibility to do either one. There are also opportunities for online students to take part in Zoom sessions in some of the classes, if that's something that you desire. But as I'll say shortly, our online offerings tend to be asynchronous, meaning that you aren't required to be anywhere at a certain time. Instead, you're working on submitting assignments and taking part in forums at certain points throughout a given week. There are some concentrations that are offered exclusively online or in person. If you tend to be in person, then you can take it online or you can show up in person depending on what that availability is. The way the schedule works, there are 6 8-week sessions, so our classes are 8 weeks long, and there's 2 extended breaks per year. One of them is around the Christmas break, so basically you get about a month off around Christmas, and then the other one is around spring break in March. Most students take courses continually all year long, and if you take courses in sequence continually, then you can finish in under 2 years, taking one class at a time. It is possible for students to double up to try to finish up in as little as 1 year. If that's something that you're interested in doing, then I suggest that you would advise with me first. It's a challenge to do that for reasons that we'll talk about here shortly, but it is possible. If you're taking courses in person, then you would do this by taking courses one night a week, and our classes basically meet between 6 and 9:50 in the evening. What are these classes like? So for online, you'll find structured deadlines, right? This is not a correspondence course where you're working at your own pace. There are specific deadlines, like if you're in a discussion forum, for example, you might submit a post on Thursday night, and you'll have a few days until Sunday night to respond and interact with your peers. Major assignments tend to be due on Sunday nights. It is asynchronous, as I said before, which means that there aren't specific meeting times, but I will tell you that if you are interested in meeting with your professor, you should definitely reach out to them. You can set up a phone call, set up a Zoom session, you can email them, whatever way is most convenient for you and your instructor. But if you need help, if you need some live instruction, then They are there to help you and support you. It's just that there isn't a specific class time where everybody gets together all at once and makes that happen, given this kind of a format. With discussion forums, it means that, like, if you're taking an online course, it means that there's a little bit more writing involved. So if you compare this to the in-person experience, there are fewer discussion forums that you're dealing with. Most of what you're doing is the in-person live class experience. But if you're doing it online, then there's, you're discussing through forums, and so there's more writing involved. And if writing's a little more of a challenge for you, and you have the choice, taking courses in person might be a good option for you, but it certainly is a convenient way if you want to try to pursue online education. There are some strong active learning components even in our online course. So if you get into like one of the online courses, there may be things that you're doing where you're interacting with other students or doing what I think are some pretty cool things. Like I use this example of Mike's Bikes below, right? You get to one of the capstone courses, 795, which is strategic management and ethics. And in that entire course, you are working as a team with other students in the class against other teams in the class for market share. You're hypothetically taking this bike company and you're working it strategically, right? And so week by week, you get to see what your returns are, what your profits are, see how things are going, and it's a fun competition, but it's a great way to apply the lessons you've learned throughout the program in this particular class. So it's a super awesome active learning opportunity. The in-person format is a little bit different in terms of the experience. There are still structured deadlines, right? Unlike having a couple of deadlines over the week, most of the time your deadline is going to be, get your work done by the time you come to class the next week. Classes, as I said before, are offered Monday through Thursday in person between 6 and 9:50 p.m. Now, I wouldn't think about this as like one large class, right? We do take breaks in between, but more like maybe 4 classes with 5-minute breaks in between, but they're all on the same subject. And our instructors are really good, right? We'd like to keep things lively. We put a lot of energy into it, and we have lots of activities that hopefully will keep you awake and alive and excited even as you approach that 10 o'clock hour. I do think one advantage of in-person learning is that you have immediate access to the instructor. If you're there in the classroom with that person, then you can ask questions, you can interact, it's a little more spontaneous in terms of the way things go with students. I think it's really cool. It's a really great way to learn. It's important to network, whether you're online or in person, right? You want to try to get to know the other people in your class and your professor. That's a little bit easier to do in an in-person environment. So if you're doing it online, you really need to start thinking about, like, maybe I should be putting together a study group with students, maybe over Zoom, or work on assignments together, or maybe even do something social in some kind of a video format. But I really think that there's something that's great about making that social connection. And again, it's probably a little bit easier to do in person than it is in an online environment. In the in-person environment, there's probably more active learning on balance. Yes, you will get Mike's Bikes just like they do online. But like, say, if you take my global management class, we will do a simulation at some point where you role play people from different cultures trying to negotiate a business deal. So there's a lot of fun things that we do, and you probably get a little bit more of that kind of active learning in the in-person environment. The University of St. Mary, we're a highly reputable Catholic liberal arts college. We are among the top ones in our region. In the Kansas City area, we're among the top 2 in terms of students that get out of the program that have the highest earnings, according to the Kansas City Business Journal. So something I'm proud to tell you. And there are reasons why that's the case, right? One is that it's a challenging curriculum. I'm not going to lie to you. Grad school is hard. If you go to other universities and they tell you that, like, oh, we can make this easy for you, then they're either a not very good school or they're lying to you. I mean, if it's going to mean something, then it is going to be challenging. And yeah, we have kind of a challenging curriculum, so I'm not going to lie to you, but it's totally worth it. So there's that. Also, we really focus on value-based education as well. Yes, you're going to learn how to make a profit, but we really want you to learn how to make a difference in this world. And That's really important anyway in terms of this, Catholic liberal arts background that we have. We have a long tradition. We're a brick and mortar institution, and we take our education very, very seriously, which, in today's educational environment isn't something that you find from every university that you run into. Some tips, some keys to success that I want to share with you here. First, I think it's important that you learn how to manage your time and you have realistic expectations about how much time it's going to take to be successful. I recommend that students spend about 15 to 20 hours per week in order to try to be successful in their 8-week class. So for those of you who may be taking classes in person, that may include the time in class, right? For those of you who are online, that may be time that you're spending prepping and responding to discussion forums or whatever. But also that number may change over time. So a lot of students come into the program really excited, really zealous, and they're really on that high end of like, okay, I'm going to build all this stuff out, spend all this time. And usually by the time they get to the second or third class, they get more efficient. They learn like, okay, this is what works for me. And maybe they're spending a little bit less time because they are becoming more efficient. But that also may be variable based on what class you're taking. Like if you're a total ace in finance, but marketing is more challenging, then it makes sense that you may spend more time on your marketing class than your finance class. Finally, I will say that when you get toward the end of the program and you take those capstone experience courses like global management or strategic management and ethics, those are just hard classes. I mean, they're summative classes, which means that in these courses, you're taking what you learned throughout the program and you're applying them in practical ways. And it's a way for us to evaluate, like, have you really mastered the material? And so those courses tend to take a little bit more time. They're a little bit more challenging, but yeah, then you hit those a little closer to the end. So it does vary a little bit in terms of how much time you might take. But that time management piece is really important because you're doing something significant for a fairly short period of your life, but you have to make sure that you make those adjustments so you make that work. So maybe that means that, whatever, you clear out your Saturday, and Saturday is going to be the day where you try to get a whole lot of work done. Or maybe you build out times during your work week, maybe a lunch break or something where you're catching up on your reading. So if I were you, I would set up like a grid or some sort of a timetable where you assign like how much time am I going to be able to set aside in order to be successful in this program. And then as you go through, you may adjust it as you go, but at least you go in with a plan. I think that's the first thing, is really making sure that you have time to make it work, right? So the second key to success, I would suggest, is to get buy-in, right? If your family, your friends, and your employer are supportive of you, you are more likely to be successful. If they're not, then that may be a recipe for failure. If somebody says, hey, you're telling them that, look, I need Saturday in order to get work done, and either your employer or your spouse is like, no, I need you to do something else, and why are you spending all this time? That's not a very good environment. So really trying to get support from those people is really, really important. Third, I would say network with peers. I briefly mentioned that before, but really get to know those people. I have had situations where students have gotten opportunities from each other because, a lot of these students are adult professionals and they already have a level of expertise, and these people know other people. And a lot of times people find new jobs because they network with their peers in the classroom. There's a story of one of our former students, somebody who graduated from the MBA program, was actually working on making a business while in the MBA program, hired some of his peers, made $1 million, eventually sold off the business to somebody else, and is now doing all sorts of startups and things like that. I mean, it's a crazy experience. It's a really cool environment, but getting to know those people and what they're good at and learning from them is a really important thing. And I will tell you, that's something else that I really love about this program, is that every time I teach a class, I learn something new. Like in the last class that we had, for example, there's a woman who is an accountant, and like, accounting's not my thing. That's not my area of specialty, right? But I can learn from her. She'll talk about like what her experience is doing certain things, or how that applies to international business, or whatever the subject is that we're teaching. And you all will learn from her, right? But I get to learn from her too. And so it's an important component to remember, is that many of you will have stuff that other people don't know. and you have an opportunity to share that. If it's in an online environment, then you can share that stuff on discussion forums. You can kind of read about that and learn about people's personal experience. If you're in a live classroom, it's much more spontaneous, but you have that opportunity there as well. So please take advantage of those connections. The next thing I will say is take advantage of connections with instructors, right? You shouldn't be looking at instructors as some sort of distant sage on the stage, kind of like you may have thought about as an undergraduate. Like, yeah, it's the person down there in the lecture hall, and I probably don't want to bother them, right? No, it should be the opposite in this kind of environment. The people who are teaching these courses tend to be professors and people who have had practical experience doing whatever it is that they're teaching. So, if you take me, for example, I was a small business owner and a business consultant before I got into academia, right? There's a guy teaching our marketing classes who was a former marketing person for GM and Chrysler and designed and produced thousands of commercials over his career. We've got somebody teaching accounting who's a former CFO for GE. So these are people who also know people who are here to help you, to teach you, to connect you. And so take advantage of their connections, right? Go out for coffee with them, or if you're online, set up a Zoom session or a phone call or something. The more you get to know these people, the more advantages you get out of that. And these are people who really are interested in helping to advance your career. That is why they're here. The next thing I would suggest is to take advantage of development opportunities, right? It may be challenging sometimes if you have less experience, maybe. Like, there are some people in the MBA program who maybe haven't had as much business experience. Some people do. But these kinds of things can help out. For example, we have a couple of orientations per year where we talk about the program and how to be successful in the program. I know this just hits the tip of the iceberg, but there are some really helpful things that I will share a couple of times a year. And I would say come in person if you can, but or go to the online orientation. Either way, you're going to learn a lot about how to be successful in the program. Some students take primers. Like, one that comes up often is economics. Like, if people haven't had an economics class before and they're going into the master's economics course, they may want to take a self-paced primer course. These are inexpensive. They cost about $40, I think. They are self-paced, but they kind of give you the basics, and it helps you get ready for some courses if you really need that. We also have tutor.com, which is a 24/7 tutoring service, so they can help you with your assignments, they can answer your questions. And we have other events also that I think are really helpful in terms of professional development. The sixth thing I'll suggest is to ask for a mentor. Yes, you can have an instructor who's a mentor, but maybe there's somebody else that you want to talk to. Like, maybe there's a certain pathway, a career pathway you're interested in, or you're wanting to make a lateral move someplace else, break into a new field. I don't know. But if you talk to me and ask me, I can connect you with an alumni who maybe works in that field. You can go have coffee or have a beer with them or something and let them tell you about what the prospects are for you breaking into that field, or what kind of job opportunities are available. I'm happy to do that for you. And so if that's something you're interested in, keep that in mind. It's another way to try to be successful. Finally, I will say it's important that you do your best. And this may be obvious. This may be just like, okay, so of course I'm going to do my best, right? But I'll say that there's a lot of students who come to me in sessions like this. They're interested in the MBA program, and I say, why are you interested in the MBA? And they're like, well, because I want to make more money. Great. So it's true. When you get one of these degrees, it is sort of like a ticket that opens up new opportunities for you, right? You will be offered different jobs. You'll have the opportunity to apply for jobs that you couldn't apply for before. And it gives you a lot more flexibility in the marketplace, which is ultimately what a lot of people are after. But it's important to remember that it's not the piece of paper that's doing that for you. What is doing it for you is the experience that you have that is leading up to that. And so my mantra is, don't just go through the motions, right? It's important to try to get as much as you can out of this experience. If you're just doing the minimum, then yeah, it's possible for you to get the degree, but you're not going to be able to make the most of it. And if it comes around to you having to basically please or impress a future employer, it's best that you know as much as possible and that you really do know what you're doing, right? You'll feel a lot more confident about that. And so here at St. Mary, we're more interested in providing an experience, something that's very valuable, that's very practical, that you'll be able to use by the time you're done, but you won't get that unless you're really giving it 100%. So that's the final piece of advice for you, really, is just like, do your best, get the most out of this program that you possibly can. When I tell you all this stuff, especially about, it being difficult or the time spent and all that, I don't mean to say that to scare you away, because people get MBAs all the time, right? I'm not any smarter than you are, right? I just have a little bit more school. You have to go through the process and you just have to work at it. And it's not impossible. It's something that people do all the time. It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort to do. So it's a challenge. You will have to make sacrifices in your life. You may learn a lot of new things that challenge the way you think about stuff. And I think that's a really exciting prospect when your mind becomes more flexible and you think outside of the box, and there are new opportunities and new things that you're learning about. But also, ultimately, this is going to enrich your life. It's going to help you, it's going to help your family, it's going to help your employer, right? It really does make a difference in a very significant way. So I'll just close by saying that, one of the most exciting things for me, believe it or not, is going to commencement every year, a couple of times a year. This is my opportunity to stand up on a stage and watch my students go across that stage, and I get to shake their hand, I get to put a hood over their head and congratulate them or hug them or whatever they want. And I get really, really emotional about it, because I think about all of the hard work that they went through and all of the things that they did and my connection to them. And it's really an amazing experience. And so you can do it. It's quite possible. You just have to put the effort in, and you just have to do your best. So that's the end of my presentation. If you are interested in the University of St. Mary or the MBA program, please contact me. I'd be happy to talk to you. I can give you a one-on-one where we go through some of this information together. Or you just email me, right? Ask me some questions. I can get you connected so you can get into the program. So I wish you all the best of luck in your career journey. Let me know how I can help you.